Hi, I'm Jerry Miculek, and what I have here today on this beautiful day on the range, I've got a bunch of medium frame revolvers. So what that means to me, I've got L-frame Smith & Wessons, I have a Ruger Speed 6, and I have a Colt Python 6-inch nickel. So what I'm gonna do is take them out on a test drive and talk to you a little bit about what they are and how they shoot. I might be a little bit biased. I've shot professionally now for Smith & Wesson for the last 25 years, but the 15, 18 years previous to that, when I had to buy my own equipment and I had to make a dollar at what I was doing, I always tried to find the blend between accuracy, performance, and value. So let's just take a run with them and see what they, how they do. So what we're going to start with here, guys, I've got an L-frame, which is Smith & Wesson's it's probably their best-selling revolver that they make. It's an L-frame, which means it's a medium size. And this is a 7-shot 38 357 Magnum. This is a 3-inch gun. I've got a set of the X-frame grips on it. This is what I used at the IDPA Nationals this past year to win the overall championships. Not only did I win Revolver, but I won the overall shooting a 3-inch Smith & Wesson revolver. So that tells you something right there. I'm looking to win, guys, and this product right here led me to that. So we're just going to start off and do some rapid fire drills and then some target acquisition drills. We're going to start off at 10 yards and probably take it back to 50. Just do some planking and give you an idea of what these guns are and how they perform. All right, so we've got the L-frame here. I'm going to shoot 5 rounds because I'm cheap. Why shoot 6 when you can shoot 5? I know what you're saying. Beautiful day on the range, don't waste ammo. All right, on the timer, I'm going to start aiming at that little trench right here in front of me. I'm going to come up and shoot 5 shots on target on the left. Here we go. Kind of looked like I might have done that before. So that was a 7-shot L-frame Smith & Wesson. And we was a 156 first shot and a 78 first shot. So let's go take a look at the target right quick. Okay, we had set, this is actual target time from the first to the last shot. 5 rounds on target in 78/100ths of a second. So it's a pretty good group. You can cover it with your hand. Very, very easy gun to shoot. It has a large set of stocks on it, so that kind of aids in the control. Let's go back and crank up that Python and do the same drill. Okay, we've got the Python here. It's a 6-inch nickel. This gun, I believe, is brand new. We had a gentleman send it to me for testing. As a matter of fact, it's bone stock. It's got the stock grips on it, so it's a little bit of a disadvantage for this to be shot against that product with the standard stock. So, and also it doesn't have a trigger job. So, and black on black sights kind of makes it a little bit harder to shoot when you got old eyes. So we're going to do our best and crank off 5 in the middle, and let's see what we can do here with the Colt. My untrained finger locked it up. I'm gonna try it again. All right, here we go. Target in the middle. All right. What I did on that first run, and that's something that's extremely important on a revolver, is how fast the trigger returns. That totally stock Colt right there, Glock. That totally stock Colt on the trigger return is a very sluggish return, and that's the most important aspect of a revolver, guys, is how fast the trigger gets out of your way and gets set up for the next shot. So I actually locked it up on the first shot. We had a 49 first shot and a total of a 139. So let's take a look at the target. So the total on-time performance for 5 rounds was a 0.91 of a second. I had to really make a conscious effort to get my finger completely off the face of that trigger. And that's something I don't like to do on a handgun, is ever leave my finger off the face of the trigger, and I had to do that to get it to reset for the first shot, for the next shot, and then the shot after. Of course, that's a totally stock, brand new gun, so it hasn't been broken in. You can see it shot relatively good. 6-inch barrel with that full lug. And what you want to remember, guys, the longer the barrel and the longer the sight radius, the more accurate you can shoot it. It's like a stabilizer on a bow. The longer the barrel, the more you can be rough on the trigger and still hit a target. So with that extra weight, it kind of helped. A little bit hard to reset, but I've got another gun. Let's go try it again. The third revolver we're going to shoot, it's a Ruger. It's the Speed 6. They made these years ago. This was probably one of the very first guns that I ever won. Shot it in Texarkana, Texas at a bowling. I shot a Smith & Wesson K-frame at a bowling pin match in Texarkana, Texas, and one of the first prizes was this Ruger Speed 6. So it's been around with me forever. I use it as an unfamiliar gun to train with, and the reason for that is there's no gun or platform that I don't want to be able to pick up and shoot well. So this one's totally different. It's a 6-shot 38 357 Magnum. It's about the same size frame as the L and as the Colt Python here, so we're going to go ahead and give it a run. I've done a trigger job on it. I've got a red ramp in it. I bobbed the hammer, so I've done some things with it through the years to try to make it a little bit faster. So let's take a test drive with it. Put 5 rounds of 38 in it. And let's do that target on the right. Here we go. Wow. I forgot how hard that thing was to shoot. All right, let's go down and take a look at what we did. Okay guys, that was that little Ruger Speed 6. That's actually a 2.5 inch or a 2 3/4 inch barrel with no lug on the bottom and a small set of stocks and a set of fixed sights. So we've got 5 shots on target. The actual target time was 91 100ths of a second, almost exactly as the Colt, and lacks about 10 or 12 hundredths of a second off the Smith & Wesson. But what was apparent to me, having fired a couple of million rounds to Revolver, is that I really had to try to get my finger out of the way to set it up for the next shot. It also has a smooth face trigger. It's something I don't like. I like a serrated trigger. I like a narrow trigger so I can actually feel it during the cycle. I didn't get any feedback from it. Still was able to perform relatively well, but let's go back a little further. Okay, we're back at about 50 yards. Guys, we got 5 rounds in each of these revolvers. I'm a single action the Smith and the Python, and the little Ruger is double action only, or maybe I can shoot a single action. We'll start on the left with the L frame and just shoot some 38 special, 158 lead. All right, that was 5 rounds out of the Smith, single action. Let's get the Python up here, the target in the middle. All right, go ahead and clear that one out. And let's take the Ruger for a run here. All right, we're gonna shoot him single action, target on the right. All right, we're clear. Everybody's clear. Let's go take a look. Okay, guys, that was 158 grain lead. That's an old I-Core, which is a Revolver championship that I've shot in the past. That was some ammunition left over from that. So 158 grain lead. That was the Smith & Wesson L frame. That was the Python 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it shot It shot really good too, and that's the little Ruger, which had to shoot it single action, the shortest sight radius of the bunch. It put up a good fight, by the way, considering what I'm seeing here with the sun. So there you have it, guys. All very acceptable. That's what's great about a 38 Special. It's just inherently accurate. So 3 different guns, all excellent groups. Let's go do something else. Hey guys, what I'm going to show you here are medium frame revolvers. I've made a living shooting medium frame revolvers for the last 25 years, and I've shot about 2.5 million rounds. So I'm going to try to give you some explanation of what I do and why. Pros and cons, everything that you see here. So we're going to start with the Ruger. This is their Speed 6. It's a little stainless steel gun. They use an investment cast frame. The way the Rugers are assembled, if you take a look here, you can see the part line on the trigger mechanism. This trigger guard comes out as a unit. You pull the grips off and there's a pin on the backside, and the whole trigger assembly comes out from the bottom. Rugers are known to be pretty sturdy, and we're going to get back to that in a second. So I've had this forever. I won this. It's one of the first guns I have ever won in any competition. I won in Texarkana, Texas, shooting a bowling pin match back in the 80s. So I've had that laying around. I shoot it quite a bit. I like to train with different guns to get the feel for what they are. So we've got it at a competition or you're cross training. It's good to always shoot something different. The Colt Python that you saw us shooting is a 6-inch nickel. It has a side plate on it also. One thing it doesn't have is a latch on the front of the cylinder or on the ejection rod. So the only thing that holds that cylinder in line is the fit between the back of the ratchet and this mechanism on the frame. I don't know exactly what you'd call that, a center pin, I guess, because it has a center pin going into the cylinder. So on a Colt revolver, you pull the latch to the rear, open the cylinder, of course the ejector rod, and on a Ruger, you push the latch in, of course it swings out also. So these are pretty much comparable medium-sized frame handguns. I'll look at a Smith & Wesson here. This is their 686 L frame. This is a 6-shot L frame. They also make them in a 7-shot version. It has a side plate on it also. All the trigger mechanism comes in from the side, and that actually makes it a lot easier to work on. So the Ruger comes in from the bottom, so you can't really see the parts interacting with one another. On the Smith & Wesson, it's very easy to see the parts. The Colt uses a big flat spring to run the whole mechanism, and when it's done completely right, it's a beautiful action. There was a gentleman by the name of Reeves Junkin. He was known for his Python trigger jobs. Bill Jordan, who I happened to meet a few years before he passed away, was a good friend of father-in-law. Pretty much a legendary revolver guy. He had a bunch of Smith & Wessons, and he had a Colt Python that Reeves had worked on, and it by far had the best trigger I'd ever felt on a Python. But I think the trigger job cost as much as the gun. So to get somebody to work on them that actually knew what they were doing was hard to do, and it took a lot of man hours to make a really quality action. Whereas a Smith & Wesson, anybody can take the side plate off, put a spring kit in it. The parts are easy to work on, but because you have a visual on what's going on inside of the revolver. So it also has a lockup on the front of the extractor rod here. There's a spring-loaded plunger under the barrel assembly, so when you lock the cylinder, it's supported in its rotation on 2 spots. The Colt Python is not. The Ruger also has on the front of it, on the front of its extraction rod, it has a point there also that locks in. And something else Smith & Wesson just came out with this year, guys, is their K-frame Magnum. They used to make a big series of K-frame Magnums. They did away with them a few years ago, and the reason for that was the durability issue. And it wasn't because that they wasn't durable, but guys would get them and just shoot 357 Magnums in them, and a lot of the guys hand loading really hot stuff was hard on the end of the barrel. And I'll show you what was going on here. This is an old K-frame. If you look at the end of the barrel extension, it had a little relief cut here for the cylinder to close, so it was relatively thin. And that's where the problem comes in. If you got a 40,000 PSI cartridge, that was the weak link. If you look at the Ruger also, if you look how small the barrel diameter is, and that has to be small to match the cylinder. Same thing with the Colt Python. If you take a look at it, it's also relatively thin. So when you shoot a lot of 357 Magnums at any of these platforms, this is really taking a beating. You got 40,000 PSI there. So what Smith & Wesson did, they took a K-frame again, and they re-engineered the yoke and the frame to make it compatible with .357 Magnum ammunition. So if you look at the rear of the barrel extension here, the forcing cone, you see how thick it is? It's as thick as almost like an end frame. So they re-engineered the yoke, and they put a ball detent lock into it. So when you close it, you have 2 points to lock the cylinder closed into the frame. You can hear it clicking in, this ball detent here. So when it's in its locked position, it's extremely sturdy, and the cylinder is supported on both ends. So you have a good, strong cylinder lockup. And this thing, guys, you can shoot .357 Magnums in it until you're tired of putting them in there. They also use a two-piece barrel. This is an outer sleeve, and the barrel itself, the rifle part of the bore is under tension. So they assemble them that way, take some of the stress off of the frame. So they re-engineered this K-frame to withstand the rigors of .357 Magnum ammunition. And what's also kind of impressive about the frames here, this is an investment cast on the Ruger. I think Colt used the forged frame when they were making the Pythons. I'm not really sure. Smith & Wesson's frames have always been forged. So the K-frame you see here is a forged frame. This older K-frame is also a forged frame. So when you look at an L-frame, you can have them in a 6-shot, and this one's actually a 7-shot L-frame. And you take that same L-frame to give you an idea of how strong it is. They made it into a 44 Magnum now. You can get this model 69. This is an early model 69. It's a 5-shot, and it's in 44 Magnum, and it's on an L-frame. But if you look at the inside of the revolver that makes it what it is, you see the barrel extension here, the forcing cone is relatively thick. And they've got another lock assembly on the front of the yoke here. Instead of on the extractor rod, it makes it a lot stronger. So when you close that revolver up, it's got a really sturdy lockup front and rear of the cylinder. So it'll take a lifetime of shooting. And pretty much same thing as this other L-frame. The barrel is under tension. It's a sleeve with a rifled liner in it. Makes manufacturing a little bit more simple, but it also makes the gun a little bit more durable in the aspect that it doesn't torque the frame in this junction like the other Smith & Wessons do. So there's some product upgrades going on there. This is another L-frame, comes from the Performance Center. It's a 6-shot. It's got the broach cut rifling like the older guns. It's got a Weaver base on it. It's got weights under the barrel, so if you want to take the weights off or add weights or whatever you want, it comes with plastic or steel. You can tune that. Really high quality adjustable sights. This one shoots extremely well, by the way. It's one of my go-to guns if I'm gonna test ammunition. And here's an older L-frame. This one is if you look at the hammer, its firing pin is attached to the hammer nose, so this is an older gun. It's a 6-shot. It also has a broach cut 8 3/8 inch barrel. It's one of my accuracy guns. When I test .38 or .357 Magnum ammunition, this is what I go to. This gun shoots extremely well, so I had to put a scope on it and made it one of my test guns. Another interesting thing, guys, on the Colt Python, back in the day when a lot of police departments were shooting PPC, the Colt had a reputation to shoot hollow base wad cutters better than a Smith & Wesson. So what Colt had on the rifling twist, they had a twist in 14, whereas the Smith & Wessons have an 18 3/4. And where that comes into, guys, is when you shoot a low velocity wad cutter, the bullet is relatively long for the bore. So the faster twist stabilizes the bullet a little bit better, and it gives the shooter a little bit more follow-through technique. Or should I say, it allows the shooter a little bit sloppier follow-through technique and still have a good group on a target. If you mounted them in a machine rest, both of them would shoot the same, but handheld, the faster twist is always has the advantage with that wad cutter doing about 700 feet a second. So back in the day, the Colt Pythons had a reputation to shoot hollow base wad cutters maybe a little bit better than the Smith & Wesson, so that was some of the aspects of that. But for his overall performance, a 110 up to a 158, maybe a 180 grain bullet, you couldn't tell the difference in any of these guns. So the Ruger also uses an 18 3/4 twist. Python is a 14, so there you have it, guys. That's a broad spectrum of medium frame revolvers, so no excuse not to have a few of them. Back when I got out of high school in 1972, I know you're thinking I'm pretty old, I actually had to buy guns people think that just gun companies just dump guns on me. That wasn't the way, guys. I had to do this stuff on my own for about 18 years, so I went through a lot of products. What I was trying to do when I first started was, of course, what it costs, what it will do, how long it will last. That's all a big problem to the guy who's forking out his own money. So I started shooting revolvers. I bought a Model 10 with a good gun. I shot it almost to pieces. Bought a Model 28. It was used gun. There's a lot of those law enforcement trade-ins back there. You could buy a used Model 28 for about $100. So Colt Pythons. I won my first Python from a second chance bowling pin shoot back in the early 80s. I got all excited about it. I couldn't shoot it with the flip, guys. The way the action is, the trigger tends to stack in the rear. It takes a really professional gunsmith to tune these things. Reeves Junkard was the man to go to. It costs more than the gun itself to have that done. I figured I'll stick with the Model 28s. But to me, the big thing, guys, on a revolver is trigger pulls on all these are pretty much the same if you have a trigger job done on them. The big difference is how fast and how consistently the trigger will return to the unfired position. So the trigger has to push the finger out of the way to get it set for the next shot. That's the most important aspect of a revolver, and that's the one thing Smith & Wesson does have is the fastest trigger return speed. Also, the guns are very easy to work on. So if you're doing your own gunsmithing, you just pull the side plate off and everything is right there. Very, very easy to work on. Give you an idea. The trigger return on that gun has to stay with your finger, and that's what you're looking for. So just about everything you see here will shoot well as the other. How fast is the difference, and also how long is the difference. All the Smith & Wessons have at least two contact areas to keep the cylinder in line. Good thing when you start shooting them 300,000 rounds, that means a lot. Also, where can I get parts? The Pythons now are pretty much considered a classic. It was so hard to manufacture. They were very pricey even back when I started shooting. So they didn't pass the test of time. Either they were too expensive to manufacture or too hard to maintain, or thereabouts. Everything came together and they went extinct. The Smith & Wessons have excelled and grown into what you see here. So that just gives you an idea of what's available in the revolver market and some of the features that cover just about everything on the table. So there you have it, guys, a bunch of different medium frame revolvers from different manufacturers. What I was trying to do is give you some idea on what makes them different. So there's not an excuse not to have at least 3 or 4 revolvers. So anyway, I'd like to thank Taylor Pickerel from Integral Arms for loaning me his Colt Python. That was very kind of him, by the way. Also, I'd like for you to subscribe and like me on Facebook and keep posted, guys. We got a lot of good stuff coming.